Today I wanted to talk about how we get these hands cut into profiles that can be sent into the CNC machine. So in this video I'm going to go through the setup process of how to get ourselves set up in the Rhino environment to make a bunch of traces of these hands in different profile lines. And then in the subsequent video we'll go over more of the actual process of doing it and so on and so forth. So let's get into it. This is the model as it came from the client, and this is where we're going to start. So first of all, we're going to get rid of the world here because we don't need it. And same with the InnerSun here, we're going to get rid of that. All we really want are the hands. And we definitely want the ramps too. So, alright, so essentially what we're going to do, we'll come from top view, is we're going to, actually left view, what we're going to do is we're going to set up a plane, just a normal surface, essentially a rectangular surface, and we're going to move that surface in increments up through the hand. And as we do that, we're going to take a section of each increment, and then we're going to, once we take a section of it, we're going to move it down here so we can trace the parts that we want, and then we're going to take our tracing and we're going to extrude it to make a representation of what our profile cuts will look like. So without going too much further into it, let's get into it. So what we want to do first is want to be able to select everything in order to make a section. So we want to unlock all these layers. So I'm just going to go down here and expand all layers. And I already know that we don't need anything from the world, so I can close that. Okay, so let's just go through here and unlock everything that we want in the drawings. Now these curves, these are backups. These are just the curves that the profiles essentially that were extruded to make parts of this model, so we don't want those in there. So we'll just avoid unlocking those, and those are turned off anyways, so we won't be able to select them, which is good. Okay, so that's great. Everything is unlocked that we need unlocked, I believe. So let's just see if we can select everything here. It certainly looks like it. Okay, so now what we want to do is I want to create some new layers down here. So one layer we're going to call, let's see, what do we want to call this one? This one is going to be 2D cuts. So that's where we'll put our slices, our cuts of our cuts for the hands here. So then we got 2D cuts, and then we're going to want another layer for the hand slices or hand traces. So we'll call that hand traces. And then we're going to want one more layer for our extrusions, our actual 3D representation. So we'll call it 3D hands. Traces. Okay, so that's good enough. And then just to make this a little bit more organized, let's add one more layer here and call it CNC. And then we'll take this layer, just these layers that we just made, and we'll put them underneath that. There. And then so when we open CNC, we have all these layers here. So the first layer we want to work on is 2D cuts. So we'll select that layer, and what we're going to do is make sure we're in top view, and we're going to make a surface. So I'm just going to make a rectangle here that encompasses everything that I want, and then I'm going to select it and make it a surface from planar curves. And that's what I just did there is a process that we're going to do quite a bit, making solids and surfaces and so on and so forth from planar curves. So there we have it. There's our surface. Now we can select this. I'll select the curve and delete it because we don't need it and we don't want to move it through our model. So if we come down here and we look at from the left view, we can see that our surface is at 0. It's at the very first, where the very first slice will happen, which is exactly what we want. So now we can come back over here to top view. We'll select everything here, and we'll type in the command section. And what that'll do is that's going to automatically trace anywhere where the model's geometry intersects with this plane's geometry. And so what it gives us is a nice cutout, basically, of wherever this plane is. So the first part of the command, you just type in section and select what you want a section of. So you select the plane in the model. So that's what we want a section of. Great. And now it's asking us what plane, where is the section happening and what plane. So to do that, you must come to a different view here. It could be back or left or whatever, and select your plane that you made, your cut plane essentially. Okay, so that's where we want to cut, and then we press enter to make the section. Great. So now we can come back up here to top view, and this is where we start to set up our area. So from top view, we can just click on this gumball arrow. Make sure that gumball's on up here. I'll turn grid snap off and smart track and planar, all that off for now. So anyway, so we're gonna select this gumball, and we're gonna move this. We want to move this a set distance that we're gonna use every single time, so that when we move this down here, we can align our pieces up easily, and you'll see what I mean a little bit later. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna move this down. Let's say 250 feet, just because I know already that that's about a good distance, but we want that to be negative actually, because it's going in the opposite direction of the arrow. So we hit enter, and there is our section cut of this model. So if your model were drawn really well, or if it were simpler or whatever, if you were just taking a cut of a box, whatever you had as this section cut would be good enough. It would be, these curves are all planar. It would be good enough to make a solid extrusion. It would be good enough to cut just as is. Our model here has got a lot of things going on, and some things that we don't necessarily want to bring over to the finished product. Some details that we don't want in there, like, if we sent this to a CNC, it would try to cut all these lines and it'd be a huge mess. So what we want is we want a profile of all this going around and so on and so forth. We're going to get rid of that. I don't actually want these notches, these alcoves in the model that I'm making. So I know some of these things already that I don't want to be aspects of the project. So I'm going to trace this in such a way that eliminates all of those aspects, all of those parts. So essentially, in the next video, I'll go over exactly how I trace this and manipulate this. But essentially, what we're going to do is we're going to take this here, and we want actually to lock it, right? So we're going to go over to hand traces. We're going to lock this, and then we're going to start to trace this basically. So after we trace this. This is a simple process because it's on the y-axis here, so we can just trace half of it and then mirror it. So that's what I'll end up doing. But in the next video, we'll go over that. Thanks for watching, and please subscribe to get more information about this. Thank you.